What is federalism? Federalism is a system of government in which power is divided and shared between a central authority and regional or state governments. In a federal system, the central government and regional governments have their own separate spheres of authority, and both levels of government possess certain powers that are exclusive to them. The division of powers is typically outlined in a constitution, which establishes the framework and relationship between the central and regional governments. The central government in a federal system is responsible for matters of national significance, such as defense, foreign affairs, and currency. It has the power to make decisions that affect the entire country and enforce laws uniformly across all regions. On the other hand, regional or state governments have authority over issues that are more localized, such as education, public health, transportation, and local regulations. One of the key features of federalism is that both the central and regional governments derive their powers directly from the Constitution. They have their own separate institutions, such as executive, legislative, and judicial branches, which operate independently within their respective jurisdictions. This separation of powers helps to ensure a balance of power and prevent the concentration of authority in a single entity. Federalism allows for a degree of autonomy and self-governance at the regional or state level, while still maintaining a unified country. It provides a framework for addressing the diverse needs and preferences of different regions within a nation, allowing for flexibility and adaptation to local circumstances. Federal systems can vary in their degree of centralization or decentralization, depending on the specific structure and distribution of powers established in the Constitution. What makes India a federal country? India is considered a federal country due to several key features of its political system. Here are some factors that contribute to India's federal nature. 1. Division of powers. The Indian Constitution clearly delineates powers between the central government and the state governments. The Constitution specifies a union list, which includes subjects on which only the central government can legislate, a state list, which includes subjects on which only the state governments can legislate, and a concurrent list, which includes subjects on which both the central and state governments can legislate. 2. Dual polity. India has a dual polity system with a central government at the national level and individual state governments at the regional level. Each state has its own elected government and legislature, which has the authority to make laws on subjects specified in the state list. 3. Independent judiciary. India has an independent judiciary that interprets and upholds the Constitution. The judiciary acts as a neutral arbiter in resolving disputes between the central government and state governments, ensuring that both levels of government adhere to their respective powers as outlined in the Constitution. 4. Written Constitution. India has a written constitution that outlines the distribution of powers between the central government and state governments. The Constitution provides a legal framework that defines the relationship between the two levels of government and establishes the basic structure of the country. 5. Rigidity of the Constitution. The Indian Constitution requires formal amendments for any changes in the federal structure. The process for amending the constitution involves the participation of both the central government and a specified number of state governments, further emphasizing the federal character. 6. Financial arrangements. India follows a system of fiscal federalism where both the central and state governments have the power to levy and collect taxes. Additionally, there are provisions for the distribution of financial resources between the central government and the state governments through mechanisms like revenue sharing and grants. While India is considered a federal country, it's worth noting that the degree of centralization and decentralization has evolved over time. The balance of power between the central government and state governments has shifted through constitutional amendments and court interpretations, resulting in certain aspects of quasi-federalism. Nevertheless, India's political structure retains significant federal characteristics. How is FEDERALISM practiced? Federalism is practiced through various mechanisms and practices that help ensure the division of powers and the functioning of both the central and regional governments. Here are some common ways in which federalism is practiced. 1. Distribution of legislative powers. In a federal system, legislative powers are distributed between the central government and regional governments. The Constitution defines the subjects on which each level of government can make laws. The central government has authority over national issues, while regional governments have authority over local or regional matters. 2. Intergovernmental relations. Federalism relies on cooperation and coordination between the central government and regional governments. Intergovernmental relations mechanisms are established to facilitate communication, negotiation, and decision-making between the two levels of government. These mechanisms can include regular meetings, joint committees, and forums where representatives from both levels of government come together to discuss and resolve issues of common interest. 3. Fiscal federalism. Finance plays a crucial role in federal systems. Financial arrangements are put in place to ensure the distribution of financial resources between the central government and regional governments. This can involve revenue sharing mechanisms, grants, and transfers of funds from the central government to regional governments to support their functions and responsibilities. 4. Judiciary as an arbiter. The judiciary acts as a neutral arbiter in federal systems, interpreting the constitution and resolving disputes between the central and regional governments. Courts have the authority to determine whether actions by either level of government are within their constitutional powers and can strike down any unconstitutional laws or actions. 5. Separation of powers. Federal systems often adhere to the principle of the separation of powers, where the executive, legislative, and judicial branches of government operate independently of each other. This helps ensure checks and balances within the system and prevents the concentration of power in a single entity. 6. Constitution as the supreme law. In federal systems, the Constitution serves as the supreme law of the land. It establishes the basic framework, outlines the powers and responsibilities of the central and regional governments, and provides a mechanism for amending the Constitution if necessary. The Constitution sets the boundaries within which both levels of government operate. 7. Local autonomy. Regional governments in federal systems often have a degree of autonomy to make decisions on matters that affect their respective regions. This allows for flexibility and responsiveness to local needs and preferences. It's important to note that the practice of federalism can vary across different countries and contexts. The specific mechanisms and practices may differ based on the particular structure and design of each federal system. Thanks for watching. Political Knowledge 8470